Hello, folks. This is Kevin from Good Day, Good Prayers, and I hope you're having a good day. What we're going to talk about now are the people on the globalist side and what their job was to do. And then we're going to talk about some people on the side of what many people term as the military alliance. These are the people who are working for the American people. And I'm going to try to bring about as much information as I can about those folks so that you'll have a better idea of where you can jump in when you start doing your research. There was a 24-year period. It was Clinton administration, 8 years, George W. Bush administration, 8 years, and Barack Obama administration, 8 years. At the beginning of the Clinton administration, going through the Obama administration, there was between 70 and 73,000 factories that were closed in the United States. All of those jobs were lost to U.S. citizens. Now you would ask, why in the world would that many factories be closed in the United States? Well, the reason is very clear. And I've talked about the contracts to eliminate the American people. Well, the jobs are not going to be needed in a country where there are no citizens. And therefore, that is the reason why they were shipping the jobs to those other countries. It's a real no-brainer, really, when it comes right down to it. If there's no people in the United States, there's no need for those 70-some thousand factories to be here. And so that's why they left. Now, what has happened is that in 1963, a man by the name of John F. Kennedy was assassinated. There were 79 people in the Pentagon at the time that decided that they were going to have to take matters into their own hands, and they were going to have to protect the people because they could see that the globalists had a plan to eventually eliminate the lion's share of the American people. And they did not want that to happen. Now that organization grew. Eventually, some people started calling it the military alliance. The globalist end of the military is the industrial complex, the military industrial complex. And you have industrial complexes in a lot of different aspects of our lives, including the health military, or health industrial complex, excuse me. And so there are two sides. It's kind of like a coin. You have heads and you have tails. And for a long time, the globalists were the heads. And unfortunately, we the people were the tails. And they were stealing our money through the banking system. They were taking our money through taxes, and they were taking our money through inflation. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of representation. In the 1990s, there were some paramilitary organizations that formed all over the United States. There were tons of them. They called themselves militia groups. Well, the militia groups, they weren't able to do a whole lot because they couldn't get any traction. And so what happened is that they started bringing in people into groups that were called research groups. The research groups were the people that were supposed to be investigating various types of things The group I was with, our job was to investigate the tunnels and the military bases and so on underground. And by the way, that was in 1994 to 1996, and that was where the UN troops were living in those military bases inside of those tunnels. So that's how that was all going. Now, President Trump is trying to get the illegal aliens out of this country, and he's trying to return the jobs and help in what's known as the wealth transfer. Now, I told you on a number of occasions the wealth transfer is coming through cryptocurrencies. It's coming through investing in foreign currency. And it's also precious metals. So those are the wealth transfer. There are other aspects to it. In fact, if you look at that little profile thing, you'll begin to see some of the other things that have to do with that. As far as bringing jobs back to America, the Democrats tell their constituents that the tariffs are a bad thing for America because we're losing jobs because of those. Well, actually, what's happening is that through negotiations, President Trump is getting those factories to come back to the United States. All of those tens of millions, hundreds of millions of jobs that we lost through the loss of all those factories are going to be coming back to the United States because of the tariffs. The countries and the companies are coming back to the U.S., setting up factories and various labs and so on here in the U.S. because of the fact that they don't want to have to pay the tariffs. So they're bringing the jobs back. Literally tens of millions of jobs are going to be coming back to the United States that were taken out by Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama. Now, the corporations are reorganizing so that they will have a better chance of being able to compete in the world markets. Let me see, there's a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. Yes, the Supreme Court overruled the tariffs for the Trump administration. Well, President Trump was expecting that that was a possibility. And so what President Trump did is he went ahead and there are some tariffs that are legally on the books that can't be played with. So what he did is he reinstituted the ones that the Supreme Court overruled, and he flipped them to the other ones. And then he added to it a 10% global tariff. So that's going to continue the tariffs. I figured that that was going to slow down the bringing in of the jobs, but it's not. They're not going to miss a beat because of the fact that the tariffs are going to continue. And the only thing that's going to change is what the tariffs are named and that group of numbers that go along with all of that. You know how it is when something is, it's numbers such and such dash so and so, those numbers. The other thing that I wanted to say is that silver closed up today. It made almost $7 in profits. The last report for silver was 84.59 just before it closed. However, it tickered down 4 cents to 84.55. So on Sunday evening, when they come back in and it starts going again, it'll start at 84.55. Be very interesting to see where it goes. Is it going to go back up, or are the banks going to try to pull it down again? I don't really know at this time what is going to happen, but I do know there are more contracts out there that are going to have to be filled, and they're going to have to do something. The problem that they're running into is that a lot of the federal banks are in the process of becoming bankrupt and going down. The Treasury Department is keeping a close eye on those banks because of the fact that it realizes that many of these banks are going to have to be taken over. Now, we don't know if some of these new banks that have just become national banks, if they're going to eventually take some of those over so that they can get their client lists, or are they going to treat it like a hot potato and say, you know what, we're not going to touch this, because with this client list comes some debt, and we don't want to have to be responsible for that debt. This is part 3. This is the final part of jobs and the wealth transfer. This is Kevin from Good Day, Good Prayers, and you folks have a good day.